Mike Bisaro, President and CEO of StraightLine. Can you share a story about a client that might help people with their finances or even their lives?
Yes, there's a story that I like about this. I've told it many times, and it really gets, I think, to the core of our industry in many ways. But also, I think something whether people are working with an advisor or not, it's really as much as anything a bit of a warning about how much bad information is out there, and how dangerous sometimes and impactful. Even generic financial advice can be. So this is a story. It's from a few years ago, but it's one of my favorites. And it was somebody that I met. It happened to be a university employee, and he was about 68 years old at the time. I was meeting him for the first time. He was a big, tough guy. He was on staff at a university, and he had a very physical, demanding job. And when I met him, I could see that physically he was struggling a little bit, and just emotionally and physically, the more he talked, you could tell he was really just drained from doing what he was doing. And so I started asking him questions, and I learned a little bit about his situation. And he had, in his particular case, he had about $890,000 in his 403B. And he wasn't complaining so much, but he was telling me how difficult it was for him to keep going, and that it just was really wearing on him. And so I asked him, I said, okay, well, why are you still working? And he said, well, because I don't have $1 million. And as if it was a set fact. And I said, well, okay, well, why, what is it? I mean, obviously, I know that's a nice round number and a lot of people have it in their minds. And he said, well, they told me when I started that I needed $1 million to retire. They, right? The famous they. And I said, okay. So I didn't say anything right away. I kind of suspected where it was going to go, but I asked him a bunch of other questions, and I learned a lot about his situation. And this was a course of more than one discussion, really two over a few days. But I asked every question I could possibly think of, and every answer led exactly in the direction I thought it was going to go. He had no debt. Everything in his world was paid for. He had no obligations, no family obligations. Kids were grown. I did everything I could to see if there was something else hidden out there. He lived on a farm. He grew half of his own food. His cost of living, the more we worked it out, was comfortably below his Social Security, which was already flowing, by the way. And I asked every question I could possibly think of to find out if there was something hidden in his situation to to demand more money than he actually already had, even though it wasn't that magic two comma number. And nothing was there. And I finally got to the point where I said what I suspected I was going to say at the beginning of the conversation. And I finally said, listen, I understand you don't have $1 million, but I cannot possibly see a situation where you need any more than you have. In fact, this was a few years ago. So at the time, he was only about a year and a half from having to take required minimum distributions before that rule changed or the age changed. And I said, not only do I not see you having any obligations, I feel that your biggest problem, if you want to call it that, is that you're about to be forced to take distributions that you don't need. It said the fact that you don't have $1 million is essentially irrelevant. And the more I showed him that, the more he started to understand. And when I finally told him that and kind of came to my conclusion, he broke down crying in my office, this big tough guy sitting across from me crying. And he essentially retired the next day, put in his notice the next day. And it always stuck with me because it showed how much we have the ability to impact people's lives. And that's real life impact. That's years of his life that he didn't need to continue working to get to this, in his case, phantom number that didn't have anything to do with his personal situation. So it was a couple of things really wrapped in one. But again, I use it as in some cases a cool story about what we get to do, but also as a bit of a cautionary tale that some of these generic information that's out there can be a lot of times it's well intentioned, but it can be very damaging if it's not really customized to someone's unique situation. So that's one that I have brought out many times, and I suspect I will many other times.
Mike, great story. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.